Hi OBS fam, I'm John Lacey and this is OBS Obsessed. Today on the show we are going live to all the various places, so say hi if you're watching in the chat. Great to have your company today. But today on the show we are talking about OBS Studio filters. So we'll be looking at the audio, video and effect filters that you have available to apply to various sources. So that's coming up on today's show. I hope you've all had a great week and are eager to learn new and exciting things. So let's get stuck in. Look, the thing that we talk about on this show is OBS Studio. So if you're not familiar with this piece of software, it is a wonderful piece of software for creating video, for live streaming, for changing how you show up on camera in a whole bunch of different places. And if you want to learn more about this software, there's certainly videos on the channel, but you can also head over to obsproject.com. This is the official website of OBS Studio. So if you want to learn more about that, you certainly can go over there and learn more about that and download it. It is available for free and it is available for Windows, Mac OS and Linux as well. So let's talk about filters. Filters allow you to do additional things to your sources, and we have video sources, we have audio sources, and we have we have video filters, audio filters, and we also have effect filters. So it's probably going to make more sense if I actually show you what this looks like. So let's head over to a version of OBS that we can have a bit of a play with. So this is OBS Studio, and I'm running a portable version today just to show you a few things. So first of all, I don't know if you knew this. I certainly didn't know this until quite recently. But you can drag and drop images into OBS and they will pop up as their own sources. I kind of wondered earlier this morning if the same thing would work if I actually did this with a video, and sure enough it does. So let me just drag something over here so I can show you. And there we go. We have, in fact, I think that's probably the recording I'm making right now, so I probably shouldn't play with that one. Let's get rid of that. In fact, what I will do is I'll grab one of these which I created earlier. Let's drag this over here. So this is just a video in OBS Studio. It comes in as a media source, and if you go to your properties, you can find all the various things that you want to do. If you want to play this as a local file, if you want to restart it when it plays back, all the exciting things that we normally come to expect are sitting just there. But in terms of the filters, what we can actually do is if we right click on this source and we go to filters, this window will pop up and we'll actually see a number of different options. So at the top of this screen, we've got audio/video filters, and at the bottom we have effect filters. And each one of these has a plus sign to add a new filter. It's got a bin to remove the filter, and it's also got an up and down option to move filters in the list, because some of them, the order in which you have these filters will actually make a bit of a difference here. So it's potentially something good to keep in mind. So let's have a look at these audio/video filters first of all. And again, what the options you'll see here will depend very much on what kind of source you're working with. But here, if I go and add a new one, we've got some options here for a 3-band equalizer, audio move, compressor, expander, gain, invert polarity, limiter, move action. I should mention too that the move actions are specifically relating to the move plugin. We might talk about more about that later on if we have time. The NVIDIA audio effects, which I've got a video to show you a little bit later about that as well. We've got noise gate, noise suppression, upward compressor, VST, 2.x plugins, and video delay. So in reality, most of these actually relate to audio, but it is worthwhile noting that these are here. And if we go down to our effect filters, and again, keep in mind, some of these will relate to specific plugins, like the advanced mask is a plugin that you'll need to install if you want to use that option. But we've got things like applying LUTs, we've got chroma keys to remove blue and green screens, we've got color correction, color key, crop or pad, HDR tone mapping override. I don't even know what that is, but that's really interesting. If you know what that is, let me know in the chat. Image mask or blend, Luma key, again, some move actions which relate to the move plugin specifically. We've got the NVIDIA AR move and the background blur filter and the background removal and the blur filter. Render delay, scaling / aspect ratio, scroll and sharpen. So again, some of these are built into OBS Studio. Some of these are actually plugins. If you don't see those, you'll probably need to go looking for specific plugins. But let's have a look at this video first of all. And I guess the place I kind of want to start, and I might even just cheat a little bit. Let's create a new scene and we will say, John Virtual Cam. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to bring in a new video capture device. And in this case, it's kind of a pretend one from another instance of OBS Studio. So if I go down to my scenes, I make sure I'm on my new scene. I go to the sources, click the plus sign, and we go to video capture device. And I can give this one a name, and I'll just call it John VC for virtual camera. And I'm going to pick my options from the list. It should be the OBS virtual camera. We'll see if this works. Yep. Okay, cool. So in essence, what you're seeing here is exactly what you're seeing in the corner of the screen. It's just got another background of a specific color. We've got all kinds of different options here. And again, if you were using a proper webcam, it'd be worthwhile to consider how you're capturing the audio, but that's a little bit outside of the scope of today's options. So I'm going to click OK. Now I've got my source here, which is my virtual camera from another instance. But if I right click on this and go to filters, and I'm going to go down to my effect filters, and let's see if we can actually chroma key this background out. So this isn't, the background color here is a specific sort of bluey green color. So I don't know that it'll work with the defaults, but let's give it a go. So when you add the filter, you can give it a name. In this case, I'm just going to leave it as the default, and you'll see that it's already sort of trying to get rid of the backgrounds with the default green screen option. And if you have a physical blue screen or a green screen, the defaults are surprisingly good. I've only needed to tweak these ever so slightly, but I am curious if I go to blue. Blue's going to be a problem because I'm wearing a blue shirt, and you'll see the minute I do that, like it takes out everything. But I'm going to see if I can actually go with a custom color. And I know the hex code of this one. I thought I did. Let me just check that really quickly. Let's do this over here. Okay, that didn't work. That's really interesting. All right, give me 1 second. I'm gonna turn on studio mode in this version, and I'm just gonna make sure that I've got the right version over here. I just want to grab my color source, which is this one here. Copy that over and go OK. And I'll turn off studio mode. Okay, cool. So now I've got this color. I can paste this in and click OK. And this is the thing I do kind of find with custom colors, is that they're not terribly successful at doing this. If you're watching along at home, you'll see that that's taken out pretty much everything. I can adjust the similarity, and that seems to bring back some of me. So I can sort of bring that back a little bit. And I think I've also got a bit of a outline on me for the OBS Studio stuff. But essentially, once you've done this, and normally what I would do is I would just go green because I've got a physical green screen, and it's really very close. And 9 times out of 10, I don't need to adjust these settings at all. The only thing is today in Australia, it's Saturday morning here, and it's very overcast. So some of the natural daylight that would light me up actually kind of isn't working, which is kind of annoying. But essentially, I can adjust the smoothness, the similarity, the color spill reduction, the opacity, contrast, brightness, gamma. So let's just imagine, and again, that's fairly rough. I don't know that I love that, but for our purposes today, that's fine. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to add a color source in the background. And it sort of defaults to this off-white color. I'm going to leave it with that. That's great. I'm going to move this underneath my camera. And it's often a really good idea to test your chroma key on a dark color and a light color, because things can get a little weird out there. So you can see here that now that I've got this on a white background, it's very obvious the limitations of this. So what I probably want to do is, you know, maybe even resize this and just think about the colors that I want. And I can sort of tweak this a little bit. I think that's better. It's often a really good idea if you are playing with green screen, though, just try it on a dark background, try it on a light background as well. And you can still see here that there is that little bit of that bluey green color that's there as well. Maybe if I adjust the smoothness. That's not really helping. Maybe I need to adjust the color. Anyway, I promise you it's a lot easier if you have a physical green or blue screen, and that's essentially what I'm doing here in the corner of this screen. It's just that this duplicated version is a little bit different, but that's fine. I think that for our purposes today, that's perfectly all right. So we can do that, but if I go into my filters, and let's turn off the chroma key, and it'll go back to my default color here. We do have some other options as well. So let's try this out. We've got our NVIDIA background removals and blur options. So again, this kind of does rely on you having a graphics processing unit, GPU, that's good to go with this sort of stuff. And I can go in and add this one. Again, it's asking me to give it a name. Normally, I would change the names of a lot of things, but I tend to find that the filters names are fine, and that's probably a good way to go. And you can see with that, it's taken away the background really, really well. It is deeply confused about my microphone, though. It doesn't really know what to do that, and that's kind of fading in and out a little bit. I do have some options here, so I can sort of adjust the threshold. So maybe I might bring that back a little bit. And I think that's better, like still sort of disappearing a little bit. I have actually done an entire stream just on background removal, and in my experience, I do prefer a physical green screen or blue screen. I just find it works so well. But you do have these options here as well. So I guess the other one that might be worthwhile trying, and I might even see if I can find a different source to demonstrate this on. What do I have in the old archives? Because most of my videos sort of have a pretty solid background. So I'm just going to delve into some images on my drive. And we'll just find those in just one sec. It's being a little bit slow for me, which is rather annoying. I'm just gonna double check that the chat is doing its thing. Okay, so it seems to be all right. All right, cool. I must admit, I did leave this one quite late in the week to schedule, so you know, I'm not really that surprised that there aren't too many people joining me, but that's okay. All right, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna grab just a random photo of me. Let's, in fact, what I might do, let's just create a new scene, and I'll call this one BG removal. What have I got in here? I really should have picked something a little bit earlier, but that's okay. We'll figure it out. All right. So I'm just going to grab a random selfie. Feel free to think I'm vain if you want to. That's totally fine. So this is actually a vertical image. So I'm just going to right click on it, and I'm going to go to my transform options, and I'm going to just go fit screen, and that'll bring me into the middle of the screen here. All right, so let's, and you'll see that I just dragged and dropped that in here so that the source name is actually the file name. I can go in, right click and go rename or use F2, and I'll just call this one John Selfie. But if we right click on this and go to the filters, you'll see that we have the effect filters. And we can do different things. So I can actually do the NVIDIA background removal and click OK. And you'll see that that's removed the background really, really easily. And again, because it's a single image, it doesn't need to do it for many, many different frames. So this might be a little bit more elaborate if you are actually doing a video. And we might even see if I've got a better version of this as well. So we can change the threshold, we can adjust the quality there as well. But I guess the other thing I wanted to show you while we're in here is if I go and add another filter, there's also an NVIDIA background blur filter. So if I click on this one and click OK. Once we give it a name, you'll see that it's blurred the background really, really easily. And I can sort of adjust the intensity of that background. So I could bring that down a little bit if I want it less blurred, or I can bring that all the way up. So that's kind of, those are a couple of options to actually filter the backgrounds. But I'm curious, and I'm just going to see if I can find a video on my computer really quickly. In fact, I think the Rode wireless micro probably had some videos here. So I don't know that this is going to work particularly well, but let's give it a go. So I'm just going to click on the eye icon just to hide that selfie for the moment. I'm going to drag a random video over to OBS. This is actually a fairly short video. I think it was sort of a bit of an outtake, but again, let's just see what this makes of it. And it may not work particularly well because it is kind of a landscape portrait and I'm one tiny aspect of this, but let's give it a go. So if we go NVIDIA backgrounds blur filter, and here it looks like it's blurred everything and I can't see anything. So let's just make sure we're playing this to see what this looks like. Okay, you can see what it's trying to do. So and again, let me describe this if you're only listening. It has actually blurred out the background and it's sort of, it's got me there. In fact, what I might do, I'm going to right click and go to the properties and I'm just going to tell it to loop this video so we can keep seeing this. Okay. So now that I'm looping it, it doesn't seem to want to play nicely. So let's turn the loop off for a second. I'll turn that off for a second. We might even use the hardware decoding. That might be helpful at this point in time. But potentially it could remove the background. And again, as someone who's kind of always in front of a green screen, I don't need a lot of, I don't really need this functionality too much, but it might be something that might be appropriate for your stuff. So keep that in mind as well. Yeah, so I mean, those are a few of the different options in terms of removing a background, in terms of chroma keying out the background, if that's something you want to do. I'm kind of curious, and again, we'll just see what this looks like. We'll go background removal. And again, I'm just going to leave it on the defaults. I'm going to hide this for a second, and I'm going to turn it back on. In fact, let's do replay start when that becomes visible. That is really trippy. So it's trying its hardest. And again, this particular video isn't necessarily particularly optimized for this background removal, but you can see that it's genuinely giving it a go. So that's kind of cool. All right, let me just check in with the comments. So hello to live stream consultants. Great to have your company. Saying good afternoon, John. Wonderful. Thank you for being here. Today we're talking all about OBS Studio filters, and we have a lot of options sort of buried in the background, and I don't think a lot of people know that a lot of these exist. So I kind of wanted to talk about them a little bit more. So we've kind of looked at removing a background with the chroma key, whether that's a blue screen, a green screen, or potentially something else. Again, your results may vary a little bit, and we've looked at the NVIDIA background removal and background blur. Again, really does depend on the kind of sources that you're working with as to how successful they will be. I do want to talk about audio sources in more detail, but I think let's change tack a little bit and we'll go back to our screen share. So I'm going to create a new scene and I'm just going to call this one ticker. And what I might do, I'm going to create a new color source and I'll say white bar. And I'm going to drag this all the way up so it's pure white. I'm going to adjust the height of this one. I'm not really sure what the height should be, but let's try 280. That's all right. I think that works. What I will do is I will reposition this roughly to the bottom of the screen. Again, you can actually right click on this and go into edit, transform, and do this mathematically. But yeah, It's it is definitely a part of me can be a bit of a control freak, and I really do love sort of going in there and sort of just working with the numbers and the pixel values. That's really oddly comforting to me. But anyway, let's just double check in the chat because it's suddenly on fire after me doubting I was even live for the longest time. Roy says, cool. Yep, absolutely. Business Growth Ready does make this point about the NVIDIA filters are subject to the card you have. Yes, that is true. And I think there is something else I wanted to show you about that too, because the other thing, you might actually get an error message if you use those filters and you don't have those particular cards. So I'll just hide that comment for a second. So if you actually go to the NVIDIA Broadcast Download Center, what you want to do is you want to actually download the audio effects and the video effects for the type of card you have. And eventually it dawned on me that I had a 40 series, so I sort of downloaded and installed both of these. And it really was just telling us that there was a newer version. It actually didn't prevent me from doing anything in terms of using those filters, but it does, you know, as Business Growth Ready notes, it definitely requires some sort of GPU unit. So if you don't have that, you know, there are other ways of doing things, but again, just keep that in mind because it is important that if you're using the NVIDIA stuff, that you have a card that supports that. All right, and hello to Saeed as well, who's popped in as well. All right, great to have your company, everybody. All right, let's get back into my magical thing. And I'm sure many of you will have seen this, and this won't be a great shock, but I'm just sharing this in case it's new to somebody else. So I've created a new scene. I've got a white bar at the bottom of my screen as the source. I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to actually add a text GDI plus source. GDI Plus is Windows specific, but any old text source will work on Mac and Linux. I'm going to call this one updates. Again, it's up to you what you call these things. So now, it's sort of defaulted at the top of the screen, which is super annoying, but that's okay. So I can sort of see what this looks like anyway. I'm going to go in and I'm going to say, hey, that's might be a little big, but actually I'm sort of okay with that. I'm going to change the color of this to black. It's going to disappear visually, but I'm going to bring it down here. It's probably a little bit too big. We'll go in and we'll adjust this one as well. So I don't know. Let's try 160. And again, you can change your font. I'm going to leave it on the default, whatever it happens to be. And I might go latest version of OBS Studio is out now. I'm going to put some tabs in, and I have a weird feeling this won't interpret this space in this way, but let's not dwell on that for too much right now. I'll go OBS Obsessed newsletter, and I'll go johnlacey.com/OBS news, and I don't know, we'll say subscribe. I'll go youtube.com/@Learn Livestreaming. Okay, let's click OK. So you'll see I've got this giant string of text that is so large it actually goes behind my head and off the screen, which is kind of what we actually do want here. So in this case, I'm going to right click on the update. So that's the text, and I'm going to go to filters, and we have our effect filters, and I can go to scroll. And I'm sure there'll be no prizes for guessing what's about to happen, but I think it's worth showing because I think it's something a lot of people are always looking for, and we're very familiar with this on news broadcasts especially. So I go to scroll. I can give it its own unique name, but scroll works just fine for me. And right now, it's not going to do anything because our horizontal speed and our vertical speed are 0. So if I actually increase my horizontal speed, you'll see that the text behind this filter option is sort of scrolling. And if I actually go into the negative territory, it will go from left to right. And if I go positive, it'll go from right to left. And you can also do this for the vertical speed. So in this case, this is not a great example because I really only have one line of text, but essentially if I were to increase this ever so slightly, it's actually repeating the same line of text over and over again, which actually isn't awful. I'm sure they could find some options for that. But yes, we can certainly do that. And I just think that's a fun thing. I think a lot of people are always looking for that one. So if you want to go back to the defaults, just hit that default and say, are you sure you want to do that? And then I might increase the horizontal speed. So we go like that. You can see that's quite slow. You might want to speed that up a little bit. In fact, let's do that. Let's go, I don't know, 30. See what that looks like. That's still super slow. All right, let's try 300. That's probably fast. Okay, that's really fast. So you will see that it's not really respecting the tab indents in the way that I kind of hope them to do. And I suspect there's probably a workaround for that, but I don't know what it is off the top of my head. But that's certainly something you might want to play with. All right, let's go back to the chat because, you know, there's stuff happening, which is exciting. Hello to Rodney, who's joining us from Ashburn, VA in America. Saeed says, I use the NVIDIA filters all the time, background removal and noise reduction for the mic. Yes, we're going to talk about that one in a second, actually. And Saeed does say that, not that anyone asked, but there has been a minor update for OBS a week ago, also 31.02. Yes, there has. It's one of those things that... what was I going to say? The thing I tell people they should do is they should carefully back everything up and maybe run in a portable second version. But in reality, the OBS, there's only been one time in the entire duration of years that I've been using OBS that the update was a problem, and it wasn't really that big a problem, and I could just recreate everything really easily. So even though I think you probably should actually go and update it more carefully, I haven't had too many problems, so that's good. Saeed writes, I think you can crop it. Yeah, that's potentially a good idea as well. In fact, my text goes on so long that in fact, what we could do, let's go back to the screen share, turn the comment off. So if I go to the updates and I go to my transform options and we'll go edit transform. Crop to bounding box. So I'm not really sure how this works, but I'm going to, okay, there we go. So if I go, and this is really super long. So that value was obviously too big, but we're getting close. So I could potentially, and again, a lot of this is just playing with numbers and stuff, but potentially we could sort of crop this in. In fact, I could be doing this all day. It's probably not very exciting, but yeah, I don't know. That's probably not the way to do it, actually. Saeed probably knows better. He can tell me in the chat. But we do have that, so we've got the ability to do that as well. So let's talk about audio, because that is something I alluded to earlier. And the thing about the audio, and let's go back to this one, for example. And this is actually a video I'm going to play for you in a second in the stream, so you'll be able to hear this. But basically, if we go into our filters, right click on our source, go to filters, we've got the audio/video effects, filters, I should say. We've got all these different options. So if you wanted to EQ your audio, if you wanted to compress your audio, expand it, got limiters, we've got all kinds of fun stuff here. The thing that you kind of need to keep in mind though, and again, Saeed, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding with this is, even if you have, if you go into the audio, advanced audio options here for this source, and even if we were to change this from monitor off to monitor and output, you're not necessarily going to hear the processing of that audio. So the thing I kind of recommend is when you tweak your settings, actually go and do a recording on your computer, go and listen to that recording, bring it into your audio software or your video editing software, look at the waveforms, make sure it's working the way you kind of expect it to. because otherwise, you know, you don't sort of get that real-time feedback. And I can understand why, because potentially there'll be a lot of lag there and delay, and it's one of those things that you don't necessarily want to hear. Even if you're monitoring your own audio, you don't necessarily want to hear your own microphone sort of broadcast back at you at a slight delay, because that will be incredibly distracting. But essentially, if we go in here and we can try these different things like compression. So compression is essentially sort of shortening the gap between the louder sounds and the smaller sounds. And if I add a compressor here, we've got the ratio, we've got the threshold, so that's when the compression sort of kicks in. The attack is how quickly the compression kicks in, and the release sort of is how soon it lets go of it as well. And we've got the output gain, because a lot of the time, the reason you're compressing is that you can reduce that dynamic difference between the soft sounds and the loud sounds, and then sort of actually increase the volume afterwards. And there is actually an option here to sidechain or duck the sources. So if you had some music playing and you wanted to make sure that the music went down as you were speaking, you could potentially add that on as well. I haven't really played with that, but it would be an interesting thing to explore. And you can sort of nominate the source that you want that to relate to. But again, I think it's really worthwhile actually trying out these settings, recording, listening to it back, and then just going from there. Because like I said, it's very difficult to know how well or badly any of this stuff is working in real time. Although perhaps your audience will tell you if something sounds terrible. Let's check out the chat. And the chat support is telling you don't forget to like and subscribe, so I'd appreciate that as well. Hello to Ender, who's watching from Malta, where it is apparently 11:30 p.m. You're such a world traveler, Ender. I never know where you're going to pop up. You're like Carmen Sandiego or something. Saeed writes, good question. I never use monitoring. I use the audio monitor plugin and filter. And I guess, you know, in full disclosure, I should note that although my audio is processed, it's actually generally processed by hardware. It's not necessarily processed by OBS itself. So I'm coming out of the Rodecaster Pro, and I've got a number of different settings on there. And I probably couldn't tell you what many of those are and what they do, even though I've sort of studied audio engineering 20 odd years ago. So, you know, if you find a sound that you like, however you get there is all good. But I guess the other thing to note too is if you are using the virtual camera, audio doesn't come out of OBS to the virtual camera unless you've got some sort of virtual audio cable to route that around. So just keep that in mind. So if we go back to our screen share, we've got some options here for noise suppression. So we've got a noise suppression option here. And it only gives you two options. One of them is good quality and one of them is low quality. And again, keep in mind, either way, this is going to be using CPU resources. The other one in here that's really interesting, and again, it kind of depends on whether you've got the GPU processing, but is the NVIDIA audio effects. And this is something I think Saeed mentioned that he uses. So this gives you noise removal, room echo removal, or a combination of the two. And because I can't really show you what this sounds like in real time, I have created a bit of a video earlier on this morning. So let's watch this one and let's listen to this one. And I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on this, because my use case is kind of ridiculous, but I thought it illustrated the point brilliantly. So let's have a listen. And for whatever reason, OBS isn't going to that scene, so let me just do this manually. Okay, so I'm in a very noisy room with a portable air conditioning unit and a fan going. I wouldn't recommend you do either of these things when you're actually going live, but I just wanted to try out the noise suppression options that we have available to us over in OBS Studio. Let's start with the noise suppression filter. So I've just turned that one on. Again, we've got a couple of different options in here, good quality or low quality. Be really curious to see what that sounds like. And let's turn off that one. And let's turn on the NVIDIA audio effects. So again, we've got the noise removal option. There are a couple other options in here: room echo removal and a combination of the two of those. There is also a suppression intensity that I can adjust here as well. So this is what it sounds like when it's on. Let's turn them all off, and this is what the room sounds like normally. So those are a couple of different options. I should say too that the NVIDIA version does have a suppression intensity, and I didn't play with that at all. Sage wrote something really funny, and I'll get to that in a second. But I guess to my ear, and maybe it's only because I'm so used to hearing myself, but the NVIDIA audio effects, the noise removal at that one suppression intensity, I did feel like it was modulating my voice ever so slightly. So potentially I might want to bring down the suppression intensity there. But to be honest, when it comes to audio, the best advice a lot of the time is the best, quality audio in is the way to go. So if you physically can, turn off that air conditioner, turn off that fan, move your mic away from any noisy thing. And it could even just be the fan on your computer itself. But let's check in with these comments. So Saeed writes, that's funny. I wanted to demo the same using my electric air duster. You definitely should. That would be hilarious. And your audience would love that. Ender writes, NVIDIA rocks. And Saeed writes, the good thing about the NVIDIA one is it will not add load to your CPU. Yeah, absolutely. So it's taking the load off the CPU and sort of processing that with the GPU. All right. So, and hello, welcome, and thanks for joining us, my good friend over there on LinkedIn. Great to have your company today. So we are talking about OBS Studio filters, and there's so many fun things to play with, and they may or may not be appropriate for your streams and shows. You've got to make a call about that. But we've sort of looked at how we can remove backgrounds via the chroma key, whether it's a blue screen or a green screen, or some of those NVIDIA options. Again, if you've got the processing power of the GPU. We've also looked at some of the audio options there as well. In fact, let's go back and maybe keep going with those audio options. So I'm just going to delete these. And again, if you want to delete any of these filters, there's a bin icon there. We can also right click and go to remove, which apparently is delete on Windows. And let's remove that one there. Okay, so we've got the 3-band equalizer. And again, I can show you conceptually what these look like. You won't really hear what these sound like. So again, if you want to play with these, play with them on your own computer, do a bit of recording and see how they go. Essentially, we can increase or decrease the highs, the mids, the lows. That's not terribly exciting, but if you have a particular microphone that needs a little bit of tweaking in terms of its sound, that's something you could certainly try out. We've also got the compressor or the expander. The expander essentially does the opposite of the compressor. So it's actually trying to, I don't know, increase the dynamic range, if you like. We've got the gain as well. I'm not really sure actually why the gain is its own separate filter here, because I would be really tempted just to change it in the audio mixer, but maybe you reach a point where, it's all the way up and you can't sort of get it any louder. I don't know, that's really interesting to think about. So it would be really interesting if you've got a use case for that one, let me know. So we've got that one in there as well. We can invert the polarity of the audio. So, and again, this is such a nerdy audio thing, but if you've got a recording that's out of phase, potentially you could invert it. Which I can't imagine why any live streamer would need to do that, but it is an option. So there you go. We've got limiter. Limiter's probably a really good idea. And again, I'm a little rusty when it comes to the audio things, but essentially we kind of want a point at which we don't want the audio to spike too loudly into the red. And chances are you would just adjust your audio in the audio mixer and be done with it. But I guess this is kind of a bit of a backup option as well. All right. So Saeed writes, you shouldn't use the gain as a filter. Always try to up the volume on your mic or OS first. Yeah, and I guess like in some cases, some microphones may need extra gain, but I like this Shure, I keep saying this microphone, you can't actually see it in this scene, so let me just go back to this one. So this is the Shure SM7B, and this actually, because I've got the first generation Rodecaster Pro, it kind of did need a little bit of gain, and I've got a little cloud lifter attached to it, and it works really, really well. So yes, and it's all right, say it. I knew exactly what you meant. All right. So we've got that as well. So the limiter, again, even though I've done study in this, it's probably something you want to play with and get the settings right for yourself. The move actions, again, they relate to the move plugin specifically, and I've done a show on that previously, so we're not going to revisit that today. We've got the noise gate and the noise suppression. So again, you saw the noise suppression in action. The noise gate essentially will wait until your volume is at a certain, it sort of gives an indication of when you're speaking and when you're not speaking, and it actually essentially mutes your audio once it's below this threshold. And you can adjust the attack time, the hold time, and the release time as well. All right, and there's an upward compressor, which is really interesting. There's a video delay, which I've never needed, and I know some people do, but essentially, I guess the idea here is that if your audio and your video are out of sync, you do have the option potentially of adjusting the delay between those two things. And again, I would probably want to investigate why they're out of sync in the first place, because that's really not a problem I've ever had. And we do also have this VS2 2X plugin option. So if you do have VST plugins, and these are audio processing plugins that you would use in software like Cubase and Pro Tools and things like that, if you do have something else, it does have to be version 2, and I think the standard is actually version 3 these days. So if it's too new and too recent, you may not be able to play with it here, but if you do have the option, and this is probably one of those times where I would actually change the name of this one to reflect the particular plugin I'm using. But we can select a plugin here. I've actually got a whole bunch of plugins, some of which are actually virtual instruments, and OBS won't be able to play nicely with those. If you want to capture the audio from those, there are other ways of doing that. But essentially, if I had, and some of these are free, so like if I had this, what is it called? M-Charm Verb, I think this one here. I can actually open up the plugin interface and I can actually adjust this however I want. They've got a whole bunch of presets here as well. So if I really did want a particular echo for a time, I could set this up. And again, I don't think I would actually hear this. In fact, let's actually try this out. Let's and I realize you guys won't be able to hear this, but I'm kind of curious if I can hear this. So if I go in and add in my audio input capture, so I'm going to say Rodecaster Stereo, and I'm going to go to Rodecaster Pro Stereo, and you can see down here it's capturing my speaking essentially. If I was playing a sound pad, it would do that as well. But if I right click on this and I go to my filters, and I'm going to go in and add my VS2 plugin, and I will call this one Charm Verb, and I'll find that from the list and open it up here, and I will just go, it doesn't really matter for our purposes what this is. So if I've got that there, I don't think I'm going to be able to hear this unless I do a recording. But if I go into my advanced audio properties and I change the Rodecaster Pro to monitor and output, I will get a bit of a delay, and I think that is just the delay between me speaking. It's not, I don't think that is the reverb, but let me just, and again, I appreciate you guys can't hear this, so you're gonna have to take my word for it a little bit. But if I make this like really, really wet, actually I can hear that. So maybe I'm wrong about that. I can definitely hear that. So if I turn this off, testing, 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's really trippy. Okay, so that's interesting. Maybe I was wrong about that. So I guess it might be less obvious if you've actually got something like a compressor. But certainly for a reverb, I can definitely hear that when I've got that on there. It's probably a little distracting. But the thing about this is you can turn these on and off as you need them. So at the moment, I've got the charm verb on. What I could potentially do is go up to my settings, and I could actually go to my hotkeys and charm. This will be where I have to figure out what this was actually called, because it would be really easy for me to do this on a Stream Deck, and maybe I can show you conceptually how that works, although I can't actually do that for this particular one, although I am going to turn off the advanced audio properties because it's really getting on my nerves. So let's go back just to output off. All right, that's awesome. But if I were to bring up the Stream Deck software, and I'll drag this over where you can see it, we essentially do, if we go to our OBS Studio options down here, we can actually sort of turn filters on and off. So if I bring our filter up here, again, I'm not going to have the, this is actually for the proper version of OBS that I'm doing the stream in, not this second version, which I'm using to demonstrate. So I'm not really sure. I don't know that I've really got many filters going on as it is, but like let's just imagine there's, so in this case, there's sort of the composite blur. So I don't even remember what this looks like, but let's try it out. Because this will probably be really ridiculous. So if I press this one, you'll see that I become really blurry and pixelated, which is not particularly great, but it is what it is. And if I press that again, that will go away. And you can essentially do this for any filter. So it could be an audio filter, it could be a video filter, it could be an effects filter. And again, I don't know, I mean, I've got the glow as well. So like I've got this white outline around me, but I think if I turn that off, you'll see it disappears and then it comes back on. So you don't feel like you need to actually have any of these filters on the entire time that you're doing your stream or your content. So just keep that one in mind as well. Let's go back to the comments, because there's a whole bunch of stuff in there that I haven't had a chance to look at. So Livestream Consultants writes, there is a time when bringing your video in through outside tools such as Atom, you could get the audio ahead of the video. Yeah, okay, that's legitimately a good use case for that. Thank you. And again, this is a great point. So the Business Growth Ready writes, the order matters. So if you needed noise suppression, then gate, EQ, expander, compressor, just in case last limiter. So I think the idea was that the limiter should be last in that list of filters. And again, you do have the ability to rearrange those in any order that you like. And you will find that some of those will make a difference, others may not. So it's definitely a good thing to do. Said writes, side note, the order of the filter matters. Okay, you both have the same thought at exactly the same time. I love it. And his example here is noise suppression, then gain, then compressor, then limiter, I think. Okay, so you're both on the same wavelength there at the same time, which is wonderful and magical. I love it. All right, so I'm not really sure. I mean, outside of additional things that relate to plugins, and the ones that I've actually got installed in this instance of OBS, you've probably seen a lot of these before, but I guess we'll get a little bit of time. Let's talk about them. So if we go, and I'm just going back to the John virtual camera, which is exactly me in this stream, but it's got a colored background. And we played with the chroma key and the NVIDIA background removal before. So in fact, let's remove the background. It's pretty good. And again, it is that GPU processing. It's not perfect. And I think, honestly, I always reach for a green screen or a blue screen, but that's just me. And again, you do need to think about your wardrobe if you're doing that. But I guess the other thing too is we've got things like Advanced Mask, which is its own distinct plugin. So if I create an advanced mask here, it'll actually mask out part of that, and I can change that to a different shape if I want. So I'd probably make this one a circle. And again, I'm never really completely so centered for whatever reason. So I can sort of adjust that. And that kind of thing can be really, really useful for just if you just want to appear in a corner while you're doing a screen share or a presentation. That can be really awesome. They have a whole bunch of different shapes in here. I think there's a heart in there as well. Again, probably need to adjust my positioning within this frame. But you can sort of play with those. There's a star. I don't know that the star is particularly useful unless I make it a lot larger, which I guess I could do, but let's not dwell on that. And a regular polygon. So those are fun too. Again, you just need to make sure you've installed that plugin, which is free from obsproject.com. Check out the filter, the plugin repository for that one. Also the move plugin. So we get a whole bunch of stuff. I've barely scratched the surface with the move plugin, but it's really epic, and it's kind of the thing that can be used as a scene transition, but you can also do different filters. So if I go move source, it only works with scenes and groups. Yes, that's right. So instead of actually applying this directly to this filter, what I've got to do is actually apply it to the scene. So if I go right click on the scene, go to filters, then I can go move source. I can give it a name. And this is probably a place where you would want to actually think about where you want this to be. So I might even say back to normal. And I will, in fact, I probably should group these two. Let's group these. Oh, actually, I don't need to. They're just the virtual camera. Sorry, I forgot what I was doing. All right, so basically what we want to do is the VC, and I'm going to say, hey, get the transform, and that's awesome. We've done it. So I'm going to go in and add another move source option, and I will say move to the right. And in this case, I'm actually just going to grab this. I'll move it ever so slightly to the right. Again, for this use case, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but just to show you conceptually how this works. And then I can just click on this Get Transform option. So now, if I click on the filter to trigger it, I go back to the beginning. If I go move to the right, it doesn't do anything. Why does it not do anything? Maybe I didn't do that right. Actually, I've got it on the wrong source. There we go. So now if I go move to the right, no. Okay, let me try that again. So let's move our source. And again, you could do this mathematically if you wanted to, but I'm not going to worry about it too much. Get transform. And there we go, back to normal. Doesn't, oh, okay. Maybe I need to make sure I'm on the right one, but anyway. So get transform for that one. I'm going to just move it back to where it should be. And we'll go back to this filter. Make sure that I've actually got this transform. And there we go. It's moving it ever so slightly. And it's not a particularly exciting use case for this one, but the video and live streaming show, if you were here for this, I literally had two scenes, one with me, one with Sam, and I would actually use a whole bunch of different move filters to relocate them into the, you know, I would have Sam on top filling the screen, or I'd have a side-by-side, or I'd have a side-by-side sort of zoomed in a little bit. You can do all kinds of things, and you can actually sort of go in and do all of the stuff. And I don't know if I've made it in the world, but I actually have some spam in the chat, which is very exciting. So don't click on that if you see that. It's not actually a link, but it's sort of it's some advice. But anyway, so there are a whole bunch of different things. And again, if you want to find out about the advanced mask or the move transition specifically, the move plugin, there's a whole show on the YouTube channel that you can check out. So please do that. But I hope this has been useful, because I think this is kind of a slightly hidden aspect of OBS Studio that not everybody knows about. And I think it's got a lot of possibilities in there. Again, don't get too overwhelmed, but you do have the option to play with those things. And again, the thing that I'm always forgetting to plug during these shows is that there is the OBS Obsessed newsletter over on LinkedIn, if you want to check that one out. And I will put this in the chat. OBS Obsessed, if I can spell OBS Obsessed newsletter. You can go to johnlacey.com/OBS news and you can learn more about that. I have been a little slack in writing my newsletter of late, so I'm going to hopefully get back into the habit of doing that. But thank you for your company today. Thank you for all the chat. It's been really great to have your company. So go and experiment with some of those filters. Let me know what you find works well for you. If you find something that is fun or silly, that's always good to hear about. And again, you don't need these to run a live show, but they can give you some really cool functionality that you can play with. So keep that in mind. And as I said, head over to johnlacey.com/OBS news for the newsletter. And I will talk to you again very, very soon. Livestream Consultant says OBS is just very powerful compared to most other streaming software. Absolutely. I totally agree with you on that one. All right. So next week I'm sort of alternating my live shows this year, I should say. And next week we'll be doing Learn Live Streaming Live. And I think I'm going to be talking about actually creating resources for a live stream. So whether it's video, animations, images, be right back scenes, all of the things. We're going to get stuck into that and we'll talk about that next week. But have a great week. Have a great weekend when you get there. And thank you so much for joining me.